Hey, Jimmy, are you tired of bullies pushing you around?
Boy, am I!
What if you could get rid of him forever?
Boy, thanks, mister!
Careful there.
Everybody hates Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. If Fallout 4 got a new update where Todd Howard drops a cinder block on your balls every time you load your last save, it would still be better received than this game. But why? Most people just pretend it doesn't exist, and those who do acknowledge it only do so to let you know how terrible it is. So I never bothered to play it, until now. I want to see why it's treated with so much vitriol and hate. My name is Drew, and I hope you enjoy.
In the 1950s, we dreamed of a better world. Clean, fusion-powered cars, robots that walk the dog. Peaceful existence thanks to the wonders of science. We were close to achieving that dream when war broke out. Nuclear weapons were used without restraint. It was the nightmare everyone feared. It was the Great War. Millions died during the first attacks. A few people fled to underground vaults, but many more on the surface fell victim to the burning, poisonous air. For those who endured, there was only the wasteland. No order, no law, only survival. Radiation and new viruses changed the face of life on Earth forever. Out of nowhere, an army of giants called mutants appeared. They slaughtered many people and altered many more to add to their numbers. The Brotherhood of Steel, self-appointed knights of the wasteland, arose to drive off the mutants. They gave humanity peace and a glimmer of hope. But even now, the Brotherhood remains small in number, limited in power. And the dangers of the wasteland only seem to grow with each day that passes.
The Fallout series is gaming royalty, and it's the nearest and dearest to my heart. I've played a frankly absurd amount of Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4. My love for this franchise is not a secret, but I admit my experience with it is largely Bethesda-centric. I have gone back and played the first and second Fallout games and thoroughly enjoyed them, but still my cup of tea is filled with what Bethesda has done since purchasing the rights to the series. Fight me. But that doesn't mean I can't appreciate the other efforts in the franchise. So that's why I've decided to finally give this game a fair shake and see what I've been missing. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is a 2004 action role-playing game developed and published by Interplay. It's the fourth game in the Fallout series and the first to be released on consoles. Most notably, it was the last one before Bethesda bought the rights to Fallout and forever changed the trajectory of the brand. I don't think that's a coincidence either. While I obviously don't believe this game was the sole reason Fallout was handed over to a different publisher, I do think this game shows that Interplay didn't have a clear vision for the franchise's future. Fallout at the time was heading downhill fast, and Bethesda, love it or hate it, is in many ways the only reason it's still relevant today. Most of the developers from Black Isle Studios who worked on the first Fallout games were not part of this project, and it shows. I played the game and let it speak for itself. Let's see what it's all about, and if it deserves to be forgotten and remembered only as Interplay's last time with the Fallout IP.
Deep in the wasteland lies the small town of Carbon. Once a model of pleasant rural America, Carbon is a ghost town. Its people crushed by fear and strife. Carrying minimal supplies, a Brotherhood initiate enters this troubled town. The mission begins simply. Establish contact with a group of Brotherhood paladins. But in the wasteland, nothing is ever that easy.
When starting a new game, you could choose between 3 playable characters, although new ones become available as you complete each chapter. Depending on who you pick, you'll be allowed to use certain weapons or get bonuses with others. Your choice of player character only affects gameplay, as the story will play out exactly the same no matter who you choose or what you do. Each character has their own backstory, but their roads all led them to the same place, the Brotherhood of Steel, the honorable ranks to whom they've dedicated themselves. I can't imagine what Brotherhood chapter would allow a ghoul to join, but this game isn't considered canon, so who cares, I guess. As a lowly Brotherhood initiate, you must prove yourself worthy of becoming a paladin, so the Brotherhood has sent you for a little field test. That being to go to the town of Carbon in search of a group of Brotherhood soldiers who have gone missing. Carbon is a dusty shithole in the middle of nowhere. It's widely accepted that it's located somewhere in Texas, but somehow that's never been confirmed. If true, it is one of the few Fallout experiences that takes place away from the west or east coast of the United States. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel wants to distance itself from the rest of the series in more ways than just that, though. This game wastes no time in establishing that it wants to be different. Fallout has always been a franchise that didn't shy away from being silly or wacky, but it always made those aspects fit naturally within the context of the larger world and narrative, which often takes itself seriously, and uses fascinating science fiction ideas that explore society, morality, and humanity. Despite how tongue-in-cheek and absurd the first two Fallout games could be at times.
What can Myron do for you?
They always felt tied together in a thoughtful package. They were built on a foundation of brilliant world building, superb writing, and a commitment to letting players express themselves however they wanted within them. Comedy and raunch were part of it, to be sure, but it wasn't the main course, just a side dish. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel decided to take things in a different direction. For better or worse, this game did away with that foundation of serious world building and genuine role-playing character building aspects. Your only interaction with the world and story is the crushing, mangling, and otherwise destruction of bad guys that you don't choose. Your character's personality is already decided, and it fits right into the world chock full of toilet humor and swear words. I don't even mean to make that sound like it's necessarily a bad thing, I'm just stating facts.
I told them to go fuck themselves.
In fact, I found Brotherhood of Steel's dedication to lowbrow comedy kind of charming at times, in an ironic way. I mean, it rarely got a laugh, but I can tell the developers had fun writing these lines, and what else do you want? As one might in any good story, the first person you meet is the town prostitute, Ruby. She's the one to tell you about what's happening in Carbon and even offers her services. Really sets the tone.
Well, and I thought it was going to be a slow day.
Anyway, the story begins with your arrival in town, coinciding with the local raider gang causing trouble. Their scantily clad matriarch has marched in to take some slaves and strong-arm the townspeople. The mayor seemingly has no choice but to play along, and as you look at the raider matron, please note that this game came out in 2004 and this was considered normal. Cartoonishly proportioned women wearing as little clothing as possible was just the way of the world back then. Again though, it really sets the tone for the game.
Shut your mouth, worm, before I step on you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ruby the prostitute remembers seeing your Brotherhood of Steel pals a little while back, but the local bartender might know more. And even though most of the raiders followed their leader home, some stayed behind to get wasted and started tearing up the bar. Since everyone in this town is worthless in a fight and you have something to prove, it's up to you and you alone to defeat the raiders. This allows you to get your first taste of the combat, which is, to put it bluntly, insultingly easy. There is a single attack button, a lock-on button, a thumbstick to move around, and a jump/dodge button that I maybe found useful during combat twice during the whole playthrough. Most of your time fighting is spent just slapping the X button repeatedly while running around. If you're using a gun, you can just hold the attack button, and you'll keep shooting until you run out. There's not even any reloading. That's it, that's the whole game. That's not to say it isn't fun, it's just painfully simple. It's also a massive departure from the previous Fallout games, which featured turn-based combat that relied heavily on your character sheet to determine success. Your accuracy, damage output, number of things you can do during your turn, etc. were all based on the skills, perks, and playstyle you built your character to have. It's not your ability to time attacks or dodge or anything like that. Those skills and builds still exist in some way in Brotherhood of Steel, but the number of ways you can develop your character is minimal compared to those other Fallout games. Once the bar is saved, you speak to the bartender, who goes by the name Armpit. His voice actor was given the simple direction to make his delivery as gross as humanly possible, constantly burping and clearing his throat as he talks.
Armpit at your service. What can I do for you?
Once again, setting the tone for the game. He tells you to speak to the mayor about your missing friends, but not before offering a handsome deal. If you bring him rat scorpion tails, he'll pay you. And this is fitting, because the mayor withholds information until you can help him with something. It's called leverage. This guy gets it. That's why he was humiliated by the raider mommy, who let them walk all over his town while he thanked them for the pleasure.
Yes, ma'am.
He wants you to clear their warehouse of rat scorpions. Their warehouse is a perfect example of what this game feels like. It's a supremely linear dungeon crawler where you take on a series of maze-like levels full of enemies. At the end of that maze, you finish the quest and start a new one. The game places action above all else, except maybe boobs or the word fuck, leaving little room for other Fallout gameplay staples, such as using speech to get out of harm's way or picking locks to gain access to otherwise inaccessible areas. You have one way to do things, and that's to punch it right in the dick. At this point, you may wonder why this game is even called Fallout, if it doesn't feature any of the things that make Fallout what it is. Fallout is at its best when it feels like a collection of brilliant science fiction short stories, bound together within the same overworld, and form a cohesive world and lore. The post-apocalypse in Fallout is about giving the writers and designers free rein to tell the stories they want to tell, and explore their ideas about humanity, society, and morality, without the burden of modern civilization and its rules and laws. Its trademark retro-futuristic style is there to juxtapose the cheery, naive veneer of the pre-war world with the consequences of humanity and its corruption, failing to escape its own annihilation. Fallout invites players to impart their will on the world and make choices that affect the future of whatever person, town, or region they're around. Brotherhood of Steel is dangerously close to being Fallout in name only, because it has almost none of that. At first glance, it only shares surface-level things like the post-apocalyptic setting, vault tech, raiders, ghouls, 1950s atomic aesthetic, and so on. The further along I got, the more my experience with the game did start to feel like a true Fallout experience, albeit in a very different way from any other. But I can't deny though that at first, I was constantly wondering why Interplay would bother calling this Fallout, outside of it being a desperate cash-in on a moderately popular IP. The quality and execution aren't so readily apparent that it felt like a passionate and inspired team making a game that they've always wanted to make. It reeks of a publisher that doesn't understand what makes Fallout great, and was completely clueless how to move the franchise forward, so they tried something bold and edgy to spark interest. The warehouse is a boring labyrinth of gray, decaying hallways filled with rats and rat scorpions. There are minor puzzle-solving elements, if you could even call them that, but it's mostly just progressing to a room upstairs, pressing a button, and then walking through the newly opened path. The only goal is to kill every rat scorpion, and at the end of this dungeon is one of the most jarring things I've ever seen in a Fallout game. It's a giant rat scorpion, which isn't totally out of place, but what is out of place is the music that accompanies the fight. F***ing metal music. I never expected a double bass drum to be anywhere near this franchise. Yet, its soundtrack features Slipknot, Killswitch Engage, Cell Dweller, and even Meshuggah. I love those bands, but I didn't think I would see them here. It fits the rough, edgy style this game was going for, a new Fallout experience for the extreme 2000s, but it does not fit the franchise whatsoever. The music only comes up during boss battles, which does add to their punch, I'll admit. I love it ironically, but it also has the subtle stench of Interplay not having any idea what they wanted Fallout to be at this time in history. It really makes you thankful that Bethesda came in and rescued this franchise when they did. The mayor rewards you for your efforts by pointing you in the direction of your Brotherhood of Steel friends, saying they went into the nearby crater. And because you're a good little soldier, you trust his word that your friends wandered into a f***ing crater. Before heading inside, it is a good idea to check out the local trader, Jesse. Each chapter has a new trader who sells whatever weapons, armor, and supplies are available for your level and progress in the story. At this point, I was bent on making a melee build, focusing all my skill points and weapon investments on maximizing my unarmed damage output. My reasoning was that fists don't require ammo, and thus I could spend my caps on other things. My tune changed pretty quick when I realized that guns are overpowered, and ammo is dirt cheap. Melee weapons do have their place, like breaking crates for extra supplies or helping you out in a pinch when ammo runs dry. Still, there are very few situations where having a gun isn't the best option. Down in the crater is a winding, seemingly endless trudge through sand-colored, maze-like passages. I know it's supposed to be a wasteland, but there is just nothing to look at of interest. When you reach the end, after slaying hordes of spiders and rat scorpions, you encounter the mayor again, who somehow got there before you. And he's betrayed you, oh no. He worked out a deal with the raiders to lure you into a trap, so they could get their revenge after you killed all their friends in the bar. which might I add you didn't even have to do, because all you gained from doing so was for Armpit to tell you to talk to the mayor anyway. This fight against the mayor was the only legitimately frustrating part of this run. It made me worry that the rest of the game would be a nightmare. It's a claustrophobic arena where the mayor runs around throwing grenades at you. They blend in with the ground and detonate pretty quick, so you have to always stay moving. Raiders do spawn in as fodder, but present zero threat to you because they are instantly obliterated by the grenades as soon as they enter the fray. And the fight really isn't hard as much as it is a test of patience. You just slowly whittle down his health and move as he throws grenades. Getting too aggressive will get you blown up fast. And it didn't help that I had no stim packs when I started the battle, because I used all of them just to get there. So I was left with whatever was available during the fight. And I forgot to mention, another big part of combat is the stim pack button. At any time you can press that button and instantly heal, assuming you have stim packs. Early in the game, you probably don't have many stim packs and must rely on whatever you find out in the wild. But before long, buying stim packs from the trader becomes a very enticing choice. There's no limit to how many you can carry, and the price never changes, unless you unlock perks that make them even cheaper. So even as your caps wallet gets fatter and fatter, the amount you pay for healing becomes a smaller and smaller proportion of that. Once you have a couple hundred stim packs, it almost completely trivializes the combat. The only time healing becomes an issue is when you undershoot how many you need for the upcoming levels and don't buy enough. Otherwise, when you see a shop, just throw a few thousand caps at him for stim packs and enjoy cruising through the game. And the same principle applies to ammo. With the mayor defeated, his remaining explosives go off and cause the crater to crumble around you, forcing you to escape as quickly as possible. This entire section of the game is not crucial to the story in any meaningful way. You still don't have any good information on where your Brotherhood friends went, and all you did was walk into a crater just to walk back out again. The Raiders still want their revenge though, so they called their mom, and she came by to smack the shit out of the town. The Raider matron Jane is the only one remaining with solid info about the Brotherhood soldiers. But first, Carbon needs your help. And this town is surprisingly big. The game asks you to comb through every nook and cranny and eliminate the raiders therein. Not a single one can survive. They all must burn, especially after what they did to poor Armpit. His dreams of selling rad scorpion swill to the masses were dashed. Forget about the Brotherhood soldiers. I'm doing this for Armpit. The townspeople are also there to be saved if you're interested, but the main goal is just pure unadulterated bloodshed. Everyone has decided to hole up in the warehouse. Well, everyone that matters anyway. Ruby the town prostitute, Jesse the trader, the doctor, the vault dweller, they all made it to safety. And a neat bit of trivia is that the vault dweller is the player character from the first Fallout game. Only now he's a grouchy old man. They tell you that Jane is at the town mill, and confronting her is the only way forward. It was around this time that I started to use guns primarily. The most expensive one I could buy was a submachine gun at first, so I assumed it was the best. It had no trouble shredding raiders' bodies like dropping butter into a blender made of hot knives. The only problem was it ate through ammo faster than I could pick it up. At this time, I didn't know that spending all your money on ammo and stim packs was the best strategy, because I didn't know the game was extremely generous and would just give you most of the best gear as long as you're diligent in opening chests. There's almost no need to spend caps on anything other than supplies. The levels are somehow extremely straightforward, but also a massive pain in the ass to navigate. Too often you think you can quickly go from point A to point B, only to have been stopped by a chain link fence or a wooden door, forcing you to take some meandering route around it. I cannot stress enough that these levels are literally built like mazes, where hitting a dead end is as common as seeing an enemy. The mill itself isn't much different, just indoors. Jane is somewhere, but you must draw her attention before facing her. After sticking your dingus in the machinery and causing a facility-wide meltdown, you can finally take her on. As you enter her lair, she's in the middle of a meeting with a super mutant. What they discuss is not clear just yet, but it hints at nefarious plans and a thickening plot. And finally, something interesting happens narratively. She mentions that she's providing slaves for whatever evil nonsense the mutants have planned. When she finally notices you're there, it leads to one of the funniest interactions in the entire game.
Wait! Where are you going? If there's a problem, maybe you can stay and help me out. Then I can help you.
Your charms are wasted on me. Frankly, I think you're repulsive, selling your own kind.
You goddamn impotent freak!
Your Brotherhood friend spoke to her a few weeks back, and politely got directions to where the mutant army is located. Their mission, apparently, is to find out what's going on with that mutant army. They didn't care about Carbon, the Raiders, Jane, any of it. They all coexisted peacefully, and even benefited from each other. But you, the initiate, couldn't help but start blasting everything and everyone who seemed vaguely evil. Every bit of destruction and violence you've committed up to this point was really just a big misunderstanding. Jane doesn't attack you because it's the culmination of the battle between good and evil. She's just pissed at you for killing all her men.
I met some paladins weeks ago. The mutants were heading for a ghoul city, so I gave the Brotherhood directions. That's what you killed everyone to find out?
She's barely a blip on the Brotherhood's radar. They have bigger fish to fry. So with Jane taken care of, and now with the whereabouts of your friends, you can venture forth to the ghoul city of Los to continue your journey to find them. Los is a ghoul city, likely the home of the former residents of Necropolis after it was destroyed in the first Fallout game. The bridge near the town is safe for travelers, as this is where the friendly ghouls hang out. Any deeper and you end up being viciously ripped apart by the cultists within the Church of the Lost, as shown by their leader Blake doing just that to an unlucky human who stumbled into their territory.
We strive in battles dire, in unseen conflictions with shapes bred from the forsaken wilderness, shapes of beast, insect, serpent, and human.
Help! Oh God, somebody help me!
Lost behind me stands a terrible flaming sun. It dictates the penalty for trespass. Annihilation.
God, no!
Let the word go forth. None may enter the city of Los without the permission of the Church of the Lost.
Wow, that's the third sacrifice this week.
Finding the Brotherhood soldiers means finding the mutants they're looking for, and heading deeper into the city is the only way. An army of rotting ghouls fiercely defend their land on behalf of their horrific leader, Blake. However, they're fighting a battle on multiple fronts. Super mutants stormed in, seeking a secret Vault-Tec vault hidden within the city, and the Brotherhood of Steel sent a team to stop them from finding it for reasons that you learn later on. The Church of the Lost struggles to keep it all in check. Despite having the same goals as the Brotherhood, to prevent the mutants from getting access to the secret vault, the Church of the Lost doesn't take kindly to the Brotherhood of Steel being in their city. They wiped out most of the team you're looking for, except for one brave paladin, Rhombus. He's named after a geometric shape, which is a fact as useful as he is himself, which is to say, not at all. He was captured by Blake and interrogated, and it's up to you to set him free and secure the access card to the secret vault. This prompts a boss battle with Blake. Gameplay-wise, nothing has changed so far. Hold the lock-on and fire buttons until the enemy's health bar decreases to 0. When your health gets low, you spam the heal button, and you're right as rain. The City of Los is not particularly interesting to look at. There are some minor platforming elements, but otherwise the formula remains the same. Shoot until it's dead, and the next plot point unfolds. The story does get more interesting as the mystery behind the secret Vault-Tec vault grows. You start to wonder what the mutants want. What is the vault hiding? I mean, it must be important if the Brotherhood of Steel tries to stop them. The nighttime aesthetic in a war-torn city infested with ghouls and mutants is pretty sick. There's pools of oozing green liquid bubbling around every corner. It's a grotesque sight to be sure, even as the maze-like dungeons continue. The levels are competently put together, but I wouldn't necessarily call them intuitive. Exploring them to find out where to go next is not always clear, but the layout isn't the only thing to blame for that. The camera is also way too close and awkward to give you a good sense of where you are. It works well in some instances, but I often wondered why it couldn't just be a more traditional third-person shooter. The camera is disorienting, mainly because the environments rarely have any notable landmarks or other design elements to help you keep your bearings. It's just an ocean of sprawling dungeons with bland and often repeating layouts. There is variety in the locales you explore, but within each one it's monotonous and difficult to differentiate between different areas. But what is pretty diverse is the weapon variety, and this second chapter is where it starts to open up a little bit, and your ass-kicking power is magnified. There are 56 weapons in Brotherhood of Steel, and they are spaced out pretty well. Almost every time you meet a new trader or charge into a new area, there's a good chance you'll come out the other side with some swanky new gear. With Blake defeated and Rhombus saved, you can find the secret vaults. Only Rhombus gets f***ing blown up by ghouls, leaving you alone once again. He hands you the access card to the vaults. It's buried under the Vault-Tec warehouse deeper in town. The mutants are already there, threatening to barge in and discover the powerful secrets inside. The warehouse is a war zone, as the Church of the Lost and the super mutants duke it out. Chapter 2 had a little meat on the narrative bone, but it only serves to set the table for the juicy stuff in Chapter 3. You finally learn the fate of the Brotherhood soldiers. They all died on their mission, but now it's up to you to complete their efforts and stop the mutants from whatever their plans are. The Secret Vault, also known as the Corporate Vault, is Vault-Tec's facility, where they plan to shelter their top personnel and researchers. It was kept hidden from the US government before the war, because despite Vault-Tec and the government working together to create the Vault network of horrific social experiments, Vault-Tec didn't want to subject its own people to that nightmare. They made the Corporate Vault to exist outside the Vault program, and it features state-of-the-art amenities and research facilities. The Corporate Vault is likely this game's most significant and interesting contribution to the world of Fallout. I know this game isn't canon, but that doesn't mean it can't have cool ideas or lore. Since the Corporate Vault was the premier center for research and scientific advancements following the Great War, they are the most likely place to find devastating weapons and technology. Somehow word got to the mutants about what they're working on, leading to them trying to get in to see it. In Fallout 1, the Master's army was destroyed by the Vault Dweller, and with super mutants having no ability to reproduce due to mutation-induced sterility, the few straggling survivors were forced to go into hiding and hope that one day they could breed and rebuild their army. And that's what they hope to find within the Corporate Vault, a cure for that sterility. With it, they can bring their forces back to full strength and finish their domination of the human race. The Corporate Vault has its own problems to deal with though. It endured a civil war in the recent past, with the head of security, Blake, the leader of the Church of the Lost, convinced his security personnel to topple the vaults in hopes of destroying the evil technology they're working on. He decided whatever they developed couldn't escape lest the ashen world above be subjected to another apocalypse it surely wouldn't survive. The fighting within the vault left it severely damaged, trapping the dwellers in the deep levels along with their bloodthirsty experiments. When you first enter, the mutants are well within the vault already, turning over everything to find their ED pills or whatever. After clearing countless hallways, rooms, and simple puzzles, you encounter their leader, Addis. He is a formidable foe, but beating him isn't any different than any other enemy. They are all just walking health bars, and no match for your ability to hold the fire button until that health bar is depleted. Instead of dying, he fakes you out, cuts off your f***ing arm, and throws you into a giant pit. Somehow you survive when one of the vault survivors finds you in the deep ruins. Chapter 3 takes place entirely within the Corporate Vaults and features the most creative and inspired gameplay that this game can offer. Every few minutes it tries something different to shake up the formula, and it's a welcome change of pace. One minute you're shuffling shelves to unlock the path forward, the next you're dodging lasers. Then you're driving a little robot to disable those same lasers. After you're tossed into the pit, you must follow the Vault Girl back to the rest of the survivors. And since your arm is f***ing cut off, your health is constantly draining, and you can't use two-handed weapons. Later on, you're helping the Vault survivors fend off the mutant threat and escape the deep levels of the vaults. There is a notable infusion of interesting and diverse gameplay ideas here, and don't get me wrong though, the vast majority of your time is still just holding the fire button and slamming stimpaks. However, it feels overwhelmingly clear that this chapter is where all the best ideas were funneled into, whether it be narrative, world building, gameplay, all of it. It's all at its best right here, which is why I finally started to see the vision for this game. It's a shallow, raunchy, action-packed shooter that carves out a unique space in the Fallout universe. It knows what it is and respects the rest of the franchise by distancing itself from it, while also being faithful to the lore that it pulls from. It isn't trying to be anything else. It's a spin-off, and it knows its place as one. Does that make it objectively great? No, not even close. Does that mean the world was wrong to forget about it almost immediately? Who knows? But what it does mean is it deserves a little credit. Your final confrontation with Addis, the mutant general, comes just as he finds a supposed cure for his sterility. Fortunately for the rest of the world, it does not work. The scientists of the Corporate Vault spent years developing a new strain of the forced evolutionary virus that could solve the issue of mutation-induced sterility, but they never got it to work. And one quick note though about that, how does Addis figure out so quickly that the cure didn't work? Did he just rub one out into a test tube and send it to a lab? Maybe I don't want to know. At any rate, his dick pills didn't work, but they did have an effect on him. Rather than become the progenitor of the second mutant army, his physiology morphed and contorted into some unholy mass of flesh. He ascended to a blob state that he claims is even more powerful than any army could ever be. He takes a form similar to his master all those years ago. The only way to destroy him is to force the vault to self-destruct with him inside. So after you fight through his various appendages and features, you can arm the vault and escape to the monorail, which will take you well out of harm's way to watch the fireworks.
System malfunction.
Please alert vault
maintenance. Nuclear device is now
armed.
Vault seals
Ready to engage.
Countdown sequence
Commencing.
malfunction. The nuclear device is about to detonate. Now.
And that's Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, the most forgotten and overlooked Fallout game. I can't in good faith say that it belongs anywhere near the top of the franchise, but it does deserve to be acknowledged, at least. It's far from great, but not as bad as I expected. Well done, Interplay. It's not the last effort you probably hoped for in your time with Fallout, but it's also nothing to be ashamed of. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.